Our job begins where most advisors stop. Saving money is great, but how do you spend it without risk in retirement? Welcome to Every Day is Saturday with Brad Gatto and Matt Stahl, partners and private wealth managers at Fiat Wealth Management. In this podcast, we aim to broaden your knowledge about the financial world we live in today and make the boring and complex financial decisions fun, informative, and educational. Join us on this journey where Brad and Matt will explore different strategies on how to spend your money without guilt and have peace of mind knowing you are spending it the optimal way in retirement.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Saturday. I'm Matt Stahl here with my partner, Brad Gatto, and we have a special guest today, Darren Lepak. Before we jump into why Darren's here, Brad, what have you been up to, man?
I thought we were just going to make him sit there in the middle of us and not really tell anybody why he's here. And you and I are just going to talk about life. But most people can't see this, so they don't know that Darren's just kind of sitting there doing nothing. But that said, what have I been up to? That's the loaded question. I am coming up on my 17-year wedding anniversary.
Ooh.
And so have been trying to figure that out. And then my wife also turns 40 this fall.
Nice.
So that's a big deal. And so a lot of planning around what's going to happen. And we actually, you know me, one of the things that my life revolves around is my Delta Sky Miles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've benefited from that as well.
I make decisions based solely on, is that going to get me more miles? What can I do with my miles? All these sorts of things. And so we're actually cashing some of them in. And I normally don't do that either. I normally harvest them like Bitcoin and just just store them. But we cash them in. I'm taking her to Hawaii.
Sweet.
And so I was like, all planned out. This is great. It's like mid-October because we want to bring the boys. And so we got to do it when they're out of school because they've got MEA. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. October MEA break.
Yeah.
And so I was like, perfect, done. You know, this is great. My wife's turning 40. I'm taking the whole family to Hawaii on my Sky Miles. I think I'm a genius. And then my wife goes, well, what are we doing on my actual birthday? Which is October 1st. And I was like, are you serious? Well, we're going to Hawaii 2 weeks later. And she's like, yeah, but are we going to do anything on my actual birthday? So the Hawkeyes are actually playing Michigan in Iowa City on her birthday.
I'm sure that's got to be what she
wants to do, right? And I just scored 50-yard line tickets for face value.
Nice.
So if I don't win husband of the year, this is it. Year 17 is the year for me.
Maybe runner up.
Love it.
Maybe runner up. How about you, Matt?
Summer, man. Summer's in full swing.
That's what you've been up to is summer?
Yeah. We just celebrated our 15-year anniversary. So got me beat by 2 years, but
normal.
You really one up on us. We went to, there you go. Trying to one up once again. We just went to the North Shore of Minnesota. So Hawaii.
It's the same.
Yeah, pretty much.
Water.
It was a blast. We loved it. It's one of my favorite, despite all the places we've been on Earth. It's still one of my favorite places. I really, really enjoy it. So
when we have Darren sitting here, so before we introduce him and why he's here and what he's doing, what have you been up to, Darren? People don't know who you are, but we're going to ask you what's up in your life.
Yeah. I've been summering as well.
It's in the North Shore with Matt.
I've been up there a couple times. Yeah. Just watching from a distance. Yeah. My wife's a school counselor in Chanhassen here in the Twin Cities. And so we're enjoying the summer. It's been great. It's been a season of change for us. So we've had a lot of new things going on and fortunate to spend some time together. Just got back from Lake Tahoe.
Nice.
First time there. And as you two know, but listeners don't know, I used to travel quite a bit in a previous life. And so never been to Tahoe, always wanted to go. It was a last minute thing. And about 4 days before we left, I also burned some Sky Miles.
Oh, there you go.
Which hurts. It always hurts looking at it.
It does, man. I just don't know. I love watching it go. It's kind of like your investment account. My Sky Miles I watch my Sky Miles far more than I watch my investments.
Yeah. So I burnt a bunch of them and it was a great time, but excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, and you're here and the season of change that you're referencing. And the reason that you're on the podcast today is because you actually recently joined the Fiat family.
I did.
So you are now working at Fiat. So Darren, tell everybody what it is that you do at Fiat Wealth Management.
Yeah, I'm an advisor with Fiat, and to kind of rewind, and we can take things through the whole story, not to bore people with it, but I guess it's my time.
We normally try to keep these under an hour.
Yeah. We might have to do it in a few segments.
This is not a trilogy. That's not what.
Let me be clear. I'm going to need a full hour.
Many, many moons ago. I've been fortunate over the years to. I talk about perspective a lot, and I think I've been fortunate to work in this industry for a little more than a decade now, and gather a whole bunch of perspective from different areas of the business. From not only, I kind of got into this just in life insurance. So, the risk management side and meeting with clients, talking about life insurance, and then spent quite a few years traveling the country, really on the wholesale side. So working with advisors, training financial advisors, building relationships, helping them develop systems, processes for their business. And really one of the things that ate at me for a long, long time is all my energy. Yeah. And I know you two are the same way. That's why I'm here. All my energy came from that retail client, meeting with people day to day on the streets, that ultimately were in a spot of uncertainty, unknown, and helping them get to a point of being comfortable, being confident in all the decisions that they made. So I spent a lot of years building some great relationships with advisors across the country, but it was always kind of eating at me that I wanted to get closer back to what I loved, which, maybe in the early days of it, I didn't know it was education, which I think a lot of people are that way. You don't know that you love that aspect of it, but it started slowly starting to creep in, and I started to look for some change. And so, like I said, over the last decade, it's progressed, and obviously meeting you two a few years back, things just seem to align. Yeah. Whether you believe things happen for a reason, but ultimately I'm excited to get rolling and really help educate people on retirement planning, on financial planning. Yeah. And that's where all my passion comes from. Taking someone from no clue where they're at through a series of conversations, education, some laughing, some crying maybe, which we've seen in some appointments, but ultimately to see people come out the back end just empowered and confident in what they're doing. That's why I'm excited to be here and with Fiat.
Well, and so you're new to Fiat, but you're not new to the industry. And so to kind of sum up for the listeners, you started on what we in the business would call the retail side.
Correct. Yep.
Right. Working directly with families like we serve at Fiat, and then moved into more of the wholesale corporate America type side of the business. Yep. And now we're back on the retail side, working with individual families. And the analogy I like to give people that don't work in this industry or don't really fully understand the kind of the full breadth and width of both retail and wholesale, and that language that you and I use interchangeably, or our vernacular, as I like to say, is you get some of these, take like an engineer that is kind of a top of their game, working for corporate America. Maybe they're working for like Lockheed Martin and they're, building jets and things like that. And they are a really, really good engineer. And so what they end up doing later in life is becoming a professor. And so they're not actually building the things anymore, but now they're teaching other people how to do that. And so they're now an educator in their field rather than being a worker, so to speak, in their field. And so I always use the analogy that in being the engineer in itself is kind of more the corporate wholesale side of this business, and being on our side, being the advisor side, is trying to take what they engineer and the products, whether it's individual stocks or mutual funds or bonds or what, just insurance products, and then educate families on how to use these products that have been engineered in a meaningful way. And so you've been on both sides.
Yeah. And you mentioned it, how to use these things. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that stuck out for me. I grew up in central Wisconsin, we
don't hold that agaguinst you.
Yeah.
Matt and I are both Iowa boys.
Yeah. We're all not home right now. So
exactly. We're all a little bit far, but I've been in Minnesota now for a little over a decade. And, one of the things I saw when I was growing up, and a lot of times you saw the power of planning, but you didn't know what it was.
Yep.
And as, you go through the years in this industry and financial services, you kind of see the power of, hey, it's not about one thing and how that one thing works. Yep. It's how all these things work together. And, I mentioned before, but the education side, that's what it's all about. Sometimes people want to know what's the best thing out there. How should I invest, or where should I invest? And what's that one thing that's going to change the trajectory of what I'm doing? And that education process is to kind of turn the lights on and say, hey, it's not about that one thing.
Yeah.
It's about all these things that's always going to be changing and how these things work together. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Nice. I want to hear about Darren outside of the professional, because I know you have some varied interests. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So outside of teaching people about money, as exciting as that is for some people, obviously us three enjoy it. Not everybody does. Outside of this, I love everything outdoors. So as much as I can get outside, whether it's hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, being on the boat, that's kind of what drives me. Now, I grew up in the Midwest.
Yep.
I've always tried to rip myself and my wife out of here because, as you two know, it's frozen pretty much from November, and the weather tries to kill us up here from November until about April. So We fully embrace ourselves in all the winter activities, all the summer activities. So that's what I do with most of my time. My wife is the same way. She loves working on projects. She loves being outdoors. I found over the years, I really love the mountains. So I spent a lot of time hunting out west, and that's something that's kind of consumed me more than I like to admit. But,
it's kind of like Matt's CrossFit. It's a little cultish when you get into that big game hunting.
You get into a lot of people that they're the same way with golf, right? It's like all they think about is chasing that white ball. We're right at prime time where all I can think about is elk in September, running through the hills 15 miles a day. And
you were the elk.
Both.
Who's running through the mountains for 15 miles a day?
Yeah. So outside of that, that's what we love doing.
So when you say we, I know you mentioned that you're married. What's your wife's name? You have any kids, any pets? Like, tell us about your family.
Yeah. Paige is my wife. She's a school counselor down here in the Twin Cities. We're coming up on our 5th year anniversary.
Okay.
It's a little bit behind.
When's the exact date? Let's put you on the spot.
August 5th.
Okay.
Nice. You passed.
Yeah. It's also my younger brother's birthday. So if I miss that,
easy one.
Oh yeah.
It's just not a good day.
Was he in your wedding?
He was.
How did he feel about being in your wedding on his birthday?
We did sing happy birthday, I believe. We did.
Wasn't like a big one for him. Was it like 21 or 30 or it was like a random?
Just another birthday. But I think we did at least someone in the wedding party squeaked in.
All right.
The happy birthday song.
So 5 years coming up with Paige.
Yep.
And kids, pets, anything?
No kids yet. We do have a dog, Huck Finn.
Like
Huckleberry Finn.
You're obviously an indoorsy type.
Yeah. There's a theme, as you can see. But, we live in Maple Grove here, just northwest of the cities. She's from a small town about an hour north of here, the Twin Cities. Like I said, I'm from central Wisconsin.
Where in central Wisconsin?
Stevens Point.
That's one name that you can actually pronounce.
Yeah.
Stevens Point.
From one of the towns in Wisconsin that's
on one of the episodes, we should print the list of Wisconsin names and see how many people.
Did you see what was it the year that who did they play when the Packers played down in Dallas in the Super Bowl? Well, they didn't play Dallas, but the game was in Dallas. Who did they play that year? It was the last time they were in the Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers. And they had that whole
spot as a Packer fan.
What's that?
You're putting me on the spot.
Right. I figured you would know the answer to this. I can't remember where they played, but what I remember is before the Super Bowl, they have the pregame shows like 17 hours long because it's the Super Bowl. And one of the things they did was they walked around the people, outside the stadium that were just kind of taking in the festivities and gave them names of towns in Wisconsin and asked them to pronounce them.
Oh, that's great.
It was hysterical.
Yeah. My wife enjoyed that too. As we started dating, we would drive to my hometown and you'd pass all the cities and exits. And it was a blast. The mouthful that you can't understand, but for some reason, us Wisconsinites know what they mean.
So you've been in the industry for 10 years, but is this always kind of what you wanted to do? How'd you end up in this industry? What did you go to school for? Kind of give us some background there.
Yeah, this will be a fun one.
We'll be the judge of that.
We'll cover this in part 2. So out of high school, I actually went to school to be a diesel mechanic.
Okay.
There's a big correlation between mechanics, financial advisors. Not really, but
I'm a youth pastor by trade. So
yeah, exactly. So I went to school to be a diesel mechanic because I was kind of a gearhead as a young kid. I loved dirt bikes and 4-wheelers and wrenching on that kind of thing. I quickly learned that I like it as a hobby. I don't necessarily love it, especially in the Wisconsin winters. So for a few semesters, I actually went to school to be a diesel mechanic, and I always had an itch that I wanted to work in business. And obviously many people maybe feel this, but when you first go to college, you don't really know, right, what you're after, who you're going to be, what your interests are. I just know I wanted something in business. I had a few mentors that I talked to, and they always said finance. If you have a core understanding of finance, all the other pieces kind of fall into place.
Yeah.
So that's what I went to school for. So one conversation, that's actually what brought me to Minnesota. So I went to Mankato.
Okay.
Just south of the Twin Cities here. Got my degree in finance. And actually that's when I joined a captive firm my junior year. Got introduced to the life insurance business. One joke I always tell people is, we don't have kids yet, but I can imagine, when your son or daughter goes off to school, you picture lawyer, you picture doctor. I made the phone call and told my folks that I was going to sell life insurance.
And do you need any?
And I need you to sign.
And I need you to sign this. Yeah. So I'm sure they were just
otherwise I don't have a job.
And make sure I'm your beneficiary, please.
Exactly. So I learned a ton, going through and kind of learning the ropes that way, because it isn't an easy conversation, nor I think anyone listening, or most human beings, they don't like to be sold life insurance. Surprise, surprise.
Very true.
But over the years, I learned the power of it. I learned the power of positioning it. And I think Monday morning quarterback, hindsight 2020, I now understand, and what we mentioned before is that one piece and where it fits into a plan.
Yeah.
I realized that early on, which ultimately sparked kind of the momentum into where I'm at today. I understood life insurance. I understand where it fit, but I also understood that there's a whole breadth of things outside of life insurance that's important for success, especially when it comes to your finances. So I quickly got my securities licensed. For people that are listening, again, my first licenses were as a broker.
Yep.
Right. So I could sell security products and things in the market. I quickly learned that I didn't want to be selling things. Not that there's anything wrong with brokers out there, but I truly wanted to be in a position where I could give advice.
Yeah.
Where I don't have to lead you to water. I don't have to force you to drink. I just want to educate you on why dehydration's a real thing. And you make the decision, right? You make the call. So that kind of led me to where I'm at. I was fortunate to work for one of the largest annuity companies and insurance companies here in the Twin Cities as well. And that's what really, really got me excited about the independent financial advising space. You don't ever know what you don't know. And when I started...
Well, to be clear, just so that the listeners understand, that's because they were your client.
Exactly.
Right. So the independent financial advisors and these, fee-based advisors or advice-based advisors were the people you were primarily dealing with. So when you say that's what made you excited, it's because you got to know that part of the industry through your clientele.
Yep. Through that lens, through that perspective. And my client was, those financial advisors for years. And, there's thousands of them out there. And I oftentimes, I think back to my folks in Wisconsin and how do they tell the difference?
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So over the years, I quickly understood that I wanted to be independent.
Yep.
And I wanted to be a planner. I no longer wanted to talk about life insurance as a solo thing. I no longer wanted to talk about a security, a mutual fund as a solo thing.
Yep.
When I started educating and work with clients, I wanted to make sure that it was an all-encompassing, holistic, comprehensive, all those buzzwords we hear all the time, but ultimately bringing all those pieces together and giving advice on them. So I was fortunate to see kind of all lenses of financial services. Like I said, I got in early with the life insurance, actually working with folks and positioning life insurance. I spent years traveling the country, seeing different financial advisors' practices, kind of the do's, the don'ts, what I liked, what I didn't like. And it ultimately led me here today.
So it sounds like you had some options. What made you end up here? What made you end up at Fiat?
That's a good question.
He doesn't know the answer yet. He just...
Yeah, that means I don't know.
No, it's
I'm not sure. In fact,
it's a good
I gotta
go. It's something I over the last few months have thought about a lot. You could call it maturing if you want to. You could call it growing up. I think it's, again, the power of perspective. You never know what you don't know. And I've been fortunate kind of quickly, call it over the last 10, 12 years, to see what I really want in a team and what's important to me.
Yep.
Sometimes, people chase different things. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me was the culture. As I was making the decision, I was fortunate to have some options. I was fortunate to have great relationships, still do with a lot of people in this industry. But one of the things that drove me to Fiat specifically was the people.
Yeah.
It was the people. It was the processes. It was the way I felt when I came into the office. The team, that everyone's together, you're welcome here kind of approach, that I felt and I got to know over the last couple of years. So, over the last, handful of months as I kind of comb through them and spend some time with my wife and making the decision on, hey, the next place I go, I want to make sure that it's my home for decades.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not looking for kind of a partnership for a few years or, a relationship just for a little while to get us through. I want to make sure that no matter what, I'm part of something that's just bigger than what I want to do, what my goals are. And I'm part of a team that all feels that same way. So again, hats off to you two and what you've built here, but that's what I found and ultimately what drove me here.
Awesome. Anything else that you think the listeners should know about Darren Lepak that we haven't already asked you about?
Another good question.
Which also means you don't have an answer. No is perfectly acceptable. So I'm going to give Darren a second to think about that and put him on the spot here. Because when we asked him to do this, we asked him today to do this podcast. And some of that's purposeful, right? We don't want people to prepare because then you just get to have more of a conversation. He still came in with notes. I'm curious, is there anything in those notes we haven't covered yet? He's got them on the floor down below.
I'm a prepper. I'm a planner. And when I get asked a few hours before to do a podcast, there was no way I'm not jotting a few things down.
You need to spend some more time around us.
You also, you would understand that I'm going to call you out for everything in the middle of a podcast.
One thing that comes to mind is public speaking. I love it.
Yep.
I enjoy it. I get energy from it. And this is something fun maybe for the listeners that have some type of engagement in public speaking. I still get nervous.
Yep.
It's still exciting. You still get the butterflies. I'm still not sure what I'm going to say. But that's something that I always hear or read or, it's the biggest fear of most people today. I love it.
Yeah. Number one fear of Americans, public speaking. Number two, death.
Yeah, that's
I love literally it. Like the last time I looked it up, people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
Yeah. So that's something about me that I guess, and here's one interesting thing. I'm not sure if I'm good at it. So I love it. I love it. And I love being on stage in front of a group of people, but I've yet to get feedback if I'm any good. So.
You don't know if you're Mariah Carey or the guy at the karaoke bar.
Yeah, no idea. That's maybe the best part about
it. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. I don't know if it's karaoke or karaoke.
I say karaoke.
Karaoke.
So do I normally, but I feel like because other people say it karaoke, I'm wrong. I don't know why I assume I'm wrong, but I do. So we're going to find that out. Darren's going to have an opportunity to do some of the public education speaking here at Fiat that we love to do so much. That said, Darren, we always end these episodes where we get to know somebody, whether it's an employee of Fiat or it's one of our Everyday is Saturday guests that we have on. We always end with 5 fast questions or the lightning round, or maybe we have a name. I say this every time. We probably do have a name for it. And I just don't.
I think we probably called it maybe 5 or 6 different things.
We're going to ask you 5 questions, Darren. That's all that matters. And we just want your gut reaction to these questions. And they're not questions that Matt and I prepare ahead of time. You took more notes for this podcast than we did. So I'm going to let Matt go first.
Awesome. All right. You get to put a billboard on the highway right outside of our office. What does it say?
Wow. That's a good one.
Pass.
No whammies. Stop.
Yeah. Right off of 494.
Yeah.
I would put Go Pack Go.
Oh my God.
Oh, come on.
Right off of 494.
For you non-Minnesota people, our office is in the heart. Like we're just west of downtown Minneapolis. Maybe 5 miles from where the Vikings play. And he would put Go Pack Go, which is a reference to a subpar football team known as the Green Bay Packers.
Subpar football team. It's a bit easier. I was looking for like an inspirational quote, and you took us in a different direction.
But that's also why he likes public speaking, because the same adrenaline you get, like being a competitive person. I'm assuming you played sports growing up. Maybe that's a bad assumption, but that same adrenaline you get before a game, that nervous adrenaline, like there's a certain people need that in their life, and that's what public speaking does for you. It scratches that same itch of like, playoff game's on the line, it's on me, like that kind of deal. Like
I also think I'm a planner, I'm a prepper. So when I get asked, what are you going to put on a billboard? I instantly go to, hey, I've got one opportunity on 494 to put a billboard. I'm not just going to wing this thing. Let's spend some time. So,
all right. If you could buy any sort of vehicle, recreational vehicle, automobile, what's your dream thing with a motor on it? You were a diesel mechanic. You like wrenching on things, something with a motor, anything. Budget's not a problem.
That's a good question.
A brand new wake setter.
That's a boat, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Is that the name of the brand, or is that the
Malibu wake setter?
Okay.
Nowadays, it used to be just a ski boat. Today, they make boats now $250,000.
I thought you were a fisherman.
Of course, but I love the water.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought Fisher. I thought like super serious fishermen, fisherwomen hated the wake surfing community.
They do. We're also at the end of July, early August, which is really hot. So all we're doing is wakeboarding anyway. So that's where my mind goes.
Okay.
What is your favorite book?
One that I just read is called Endure by Cameron Haynes. So I mentioned that I enjoy hunting. I enjoy the outdoors. I also recently, over the last couple of years, got into running marathons. I've only ran 2, so I shouldn't make it sound like I'm
Well,
a
it's
marathoner.
two marathons.
Yeah, it's plural.
It's plural. You can do that.
Marathoner.
I once ran marathons as well.
He just came out with a book, Endure, that was really, really good. It kind of talked about all those things that I love: the mountains, hunting, and kind of the mental and physical aspect of all.
So in your college career, which did it begin and end in Mankato, or did it end in Mankato?
You could call it begin and end.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you have a professor that stood out to you or made an impact in your life, and why?
I did. And it was an economics professor, last name McDonald. I don't remember his first name.
Mr.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. He would show up to every
Professor
McDonald. Yeah.
He would show up to every lecture. He had hair down to the middle of his back, and he was a economics professor. Hair down to the middle of his back, and he would wear aviators the entire lecture.
Oh my.
Oh, wow.
This is.
And he would rant. And it was fantastic. The second best thing that I loved about this guy is if you were a minute late, he would almost like publicly rip you out of the lecture hall and send you out. So even if you try to sneak in a few minutes late, no matter what the excuse was, he would walk all the way to the back and make sure that everyone knew that you're getting out of here.
Wow.
Mr. McDonald sounds interesting.
He was
Professor McDonald.
Yeah, Professor McDonald.
Professor. He was the stories he had and how he related economics to things was insane. That's one that stood out to me for sure.
All right. Last question. This may be different if it's just you. So I'm going to say we're sending you and your wife, Paige, somewhere for a week tomorrow. Where are you choosing to go?
Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's fast.
Yep. That's been on the list for quite a while.
That's the only question he answered like
Yeah.
that.
Dude, there you go on that one.
That one's on the front of the mind.
Yeah.
Any particular island in Hawaii?
No, haven't
Just
even thought that.
Any
before.
or all of them?
Yeah, that's one of the, for those of you that are listening that are also Sky Miles advocates, that's one of them that you kind of bank up your miles and wait for. So.
Oh yeah. Yep. It definitely ate into my coffers to book that for the family. But it's also from, we're very lucky to live in the Twin Cities in a lot of ways. I hate winter more than anybody, but our airport is amazing. We live in the middle of the country. So there isn't like a flight longer than 3.5 hours inside the continental United States. And there's direct flights to Hawaii.
Yep.
You can fly direct from Minneapolis all the way to Hawaii. And it's actually pretty convenient, and Delta will actually help you find rental cars and hotels and all the things too. So
that's a Delta.
There you go. I just turned into a travel agent for Delta and the Sky Miles. This episode brought to you by Delta and their Sky Miles program. We need to start selling ads. That was awesome, Darren. It's I can tell you, over the last couple of years, and you mentioned that, like I've really got to know you guys for the last couple of years, little inside information when you were on the corporate side of it, not in the professor side of the world, as I explained before. Your company, the last company you worked for, actually sublet from Fiat. So we officed together. And so you got to be a part of, and kind of like a little bit from a distance or through the window, I think you said earlier today, kind of watch Fiat over the last couple of years, but we watched you too. And so we're just excited to have you as a part of the team, as you are to be a part of the team, because not only does culture matter, which is first and foremost the most important thing to us, but you also have the drive and the acumen and all the other things that just kind of are going to be necessary to take care of the families at Fiat the way that we want them taken care of, and kind of the bar that we have set. And so we're super excited to have you a part of the team. And like I said before, although you're new to Fiat, you're definitely not new to this industry. And so all that experience that you talked about and bringing that to the team is not only going to be good for you, but it's going to be good for everybody else here too. So we're excited about that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well.
So thanks for being a part of the episode. Darren Lepak, everybody, joined Fiat here recently. And if you know who he is, you should call him and tell him congratulations. He might even talk to you about life insurance. So That said, thanks for joining us for this episode of Every Day is Saturday. I'm Brad Gatto. This is Matt Stahl, our guest, Darren Lepak, new Fiat family member, Darren Lepak, here in this episode. If you have not yet subscribed to this podcast, I really encourage you to do so. You can do that right below on the link if you're watching this. If you're on Apple or Amazon or wherever you're getting your podcast, I just need to click on the Every Day is Saturday logo, and it's going to take you to that subscription. And as always, if you want to tell your friends, family, and loved ones about what we've got going on here at Fiat, we would love that as well. All of our information, all of our education, the podcast, the Inner Circle workshops, the blogs that we put out, everything that we do to try to educate the general public is all on the website, fiatwm.com. Until next time, everybody have a wonderful Saturday. We'll see y'all soon.
Thank you for listening to Every Day is Saturday. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Fiat Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.